All right, everybody, I mean, all y'all everybody's as everybody. Y'all beautiful people, you know who you are. Y'all conscious folk, you know who you are. How about this? Y'all people who want to learn more, you know who you are. Y'all people who really don't understand Black history, you know who you are. Y'all people who really just are curious. How about that? You know who you are. I'm gonna tell you, I'm Anthony Brogdon. I know who I am because I've been this way a long time, my friends. I've been doing something in this kind of frame of mind a long time. And I have found what I really like doing. Oh my God, it came to me one day because as you might know, I'm a filmmaker and I'm an author. And what happened was I had some book signings set up and movie showings and whatnot. And because of that pandemic, that COVID thing, all that was canceled. So I'm sitting there thinking, what do I do? And God brought to me the idea of having a YouTube channel and told me to call it Strong Inspirations, where you are today. That's how all this happened. And now the thing has blown up and is blowing up and will continue to blow up because I'm going to continue to give you this good content like I got today. The sister that's on the channel, she ready. She gonna put it on you, my friends, like all them other people have. But let me tell you a few things that's happening on my end. I'm excited. How about this? I'm having my own festival. It's called Freedom Quindaro. It's May 27th to 29th. I want 1,000 of y'all to show up. It's a weekend. I'm putting my details together now. We're going to have a party in a barn Friday night, drink a little bit of moonshine, water, sweet tea, Kool-Aid, fish fries. Saturday, we're going to take tours at Quindaro. And if you don't know Quindaro, look it up or look at the video on the channel. I interviewed one of the descendants of a Black man who said, I had enough of this slavery. He waited till the winter and he walked across the Missouri River and got his freedom. When they came looking for him, he said, hey man, I ain't going back. So it's either me or you. And they said, all right, they ain't worth it. And it was a bunch of them that got to Quindaro. I'm so impressed with that story, I decided to have a festival. So we're gonna take tours all around that area. And then we're gonna have a picnic where we're gonna have bands. And I want a guy who played the banjo just to give it the realistic vibe, but he gonna play that good music that we can dance to. We're gonna have speakers, we're gonna have something for kids, we're gonna have a health fair, and we're gonna eat, cause they known for it, ribs. I don't eat pork, I stopped that first of the year cause I am getting a little older. But nonetheless, we're gonna have that and chicken and turkey and all that other, you know what I'm saying? We're gonna rock and roll, my friends, and then we're gonna stay long enough to see the stars. And I think I found somebody that's gonna tell us a story of how them slaves looked at the stars and found their way. And so as I get used to, as I get to where I'm understanding this Quindaro, I gotta go down there, right? I've never been there. So how about this? This is how well I'm thinking it out. I told them I'll come December 4th and I'm gonna have a toy drive. We're gonna get some toys to some kids who could use it, right? That come through that Boys and Girls Club. It's all been verified. The flyer and everything will be up shortly. So that's December 4th. And if you're near Quindaro, Kansas City, Missouri, Kansas, in that area, come and check me out. That's the latest. There's other things going down. I'm having another festival. I'm talking to the people in Elaine, Arkansas. Elaine, if y'all not familiar with that story, it's gonna blow your mind because it's really not a good story in many respects. them racists was mad at them black sharecroppers because them black sharecroppers said, I had enough of y'all abusing us, telling us we ain't made enough to get from up under you. We're going to start our own. We meeting in the church, man, show up at the church and shoot the church, man. And over 4 days, they killed almost 300 black folk. Some of them wasn't doing nothing but working, and shot them. Them people can be vicious. So we're going down there and I ain't scared. So I'm going down to Elaine. That's September 30th weekend, 2022. So we're going to talk about what happened. We're going to have a good time. We're going to celebrate the lives of those people and what's going on today. Watch that one. I'm jamming on this. How about this? The sister sitting there, she waiting. She said, hey, man, come on, man. You was a little late. I said, I know I was. I'm sorry. My last interview ran a little long because these people is talking and I can't stop them to talking. When you get to talking and you telling something that the people need to hear, I let you roll with it because that's what I do on this channel. I let the people tell it. All that I do, for the most part, is answer, man, let's say it, intelligent questions. And that's what I'm gonna do with this system. I'm gonna ask a couple of intelligent questions and let them roll with it. There's good things on the channel. I've gone global. Let me tell you what I really would like for y'all to do. And y'all know what I'm about to tell you. It's free to do this. And it don't ask no information. Hit the subscribe button. Just hit the button, take your cursor, go over to it, hit it, say I subscribe. You don't have to have a YouTube channel to subscribe, neither. Just hit the subscribe button like this video, because I'm telling you, I didn't look this sister up. She know what she's talking about. She's a heavyweight in that town. So you're gonna need to like this one. I need you to hit the notifications bell, because when I'm putting 4 or 5 videos up a week, follow me on Twitter, because I tweet a lot, at A Strong Dream. Watch my movie. It's on Amazon. Business in the Black, The Rise of Black Business in America. I'm telling you, I didn't know the stuff that was in this movie. And when I found out, I said, let me make a movie on it. This documentary right here of slaves who went to college, slaves who owned businesses. All that's in here, right? 75 powerful minutes. Is streaming on Amazon. Watch it, would you please? And then read my book. I'm telling you, this is my book. This is my baby right here. I carry this book wherever I go. And if you follow me on Twitter, you see people who buy copies of it. I post a picture. If you buy one, post a picture up there for us and let us know. And people are doing it. This book is good. It's so good. You read my book and you don't learn nothing new, I give your money back. Have you ever had a book with a money back guarantee? No, you ain't seen that. Here it is. Whoop, there it is. I'm telling you, 200 powerful facts. Y'all hear me use that word strong a lot, don't you? That's my favorite word. My favorite word. I like strong. Strong stands for strength, tenacity, resilience, and a sense of oneness, nobility, and grace. And you know what? That's my introduction to the sister that's on the channel. She a strong woman. Here you go, watch out. Sister, introduce yourself, let's get it on. Thank you for being on Strong Inspirations.
Well, thank you for having me, Mr. Brogdon. And I want information about those festivals because I'm trying to go. So
yes, I need
make sure you keep me posted with those.
Yes.
Hey, everybody. I'm Marsha Walker McWilliams. Really nice to be with you here today, and just to share more about my background with Black history and, you know, the things that have inspired me and hopefully will inspire you as well.
Okay, let me stop you right there. I stop my guests and we do this first. Where are you from?
I was born in Youngstown, Ohio, and I was raised in Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Whoa, okay, we're gonna do some Youngstown talk for a minute here now. What do you know about Youngstown? Youngstown is wasn't that a coal mining area?
Mining and steel.
Ah.
Yeah, big in the steel industry. Yeah.
And so is there Black history in Youngstown?
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, my grandmother was a part of the Great Migration. So Black folks coming up from Mississippi to the Midwest. On my mom's side and my dad's side, relatives came from Mississippi and then landed in Youngstown, Ohio, working in steel mills, working in nursing homes, doing all that kind of work and raising us.
Okay, how about this? So they were from Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
And then how did they hear Youngstown? You know, I always wonder, how do people, I know a lot of them said somebody else started out first. Were they the first of the family to get there, or somebody else was there and said, hey, there's some good jobs?
We had other members who've been going north. Some ended up landing in the Tennessee area, then other folks continued going north to Youngstown. And so one person got there and started working in steel and in other industries. And then the word spread that that was the place to go. And the funny thing is, my grandma was still traveling back south to have her children. So my mother was actually born in Mississippi, even though the family was mostly living in Youngstown at the time, because that's what people did. They still went south to see their relatives and to, you know, engage in important family moments like having children. So there's still a lot of connection between the kind of Midwest and the South in my family.
Okay, so now, did your grandfather work in the steel mill?
Actually, my father worked in the steel mill.
Your father? Okay, hold on, how about that? That steel mill was not an easy job.
No, not at all.
Do you remember him coughing black smoke and dirty and all that other stuff?
No, by the time I was born, he was later in life, so he was retired. At that point. And of course, you know, what happened with Youngstown, like it happened in a lot of places. Gary, Detroit, a lot of the industries kind of fell out. You know, auto industry going, steel mills going. So, you know, by the time you start getting to the 80s when I was born, you know, a lot of those opportunities didn't exist for Black folk anymore.
But did he share stories of how rough that was?
Not with me, but I know it was rough because in some of the research that I've done, you know, I've read the stories of Black folks who worked in steel mills, worked in meat packing, and worked in those industries. And for them, you know, it was important to have jobs to be able to support your family, but they went through a lot. Like,
for example, what did you come to realize of? Like, what was the worst job that you could have in the coal mining, and that's one they gave to Black people?
Yeah, well, you got people working in foundries, so they're working down in hot conditions and they're inhaling all of that. You know, now we're talking about face masks and protective gear. A lot of folks didn't have that, especially Black folks working in those conditions. You know, you had Black folks working in meat packing. You think about all the diseases and the germs and things that folks are working with on a daily basis. And again, inhaling that, right? Standing in that. The kind of back-breaking labor for hours and hours on end. You know, some of us with these lunch breaks and vacation days, that's luxury, you know, compared to what a lot of Black folks were working with and working through during that time.
Let me ask you this. Is there a Black history story other than them working there where they had to protest or fight for some civil rights in Youngstown, some things that made note?
I've not uncovered a lot about the civil rights movement in Youngstown. And, you know, that's one of the things that's on my mind as I get older is, do I see the stories of people like me who grew up there in the history books? No, I don't, right? Like, what is the story of Youngstown, Ohio? You don't really find it out there. And so as I'm getting older, I'm thinking about, you know, it's important for me to be able to go back to my roots and to be able to talk about these stories, talk about these everyday people, and to really understand, like, how were they fighting? Because that's the thing, even when we're going through stuff, we're always struggling for better, right? And striving for better. And so it's important to make sure that that story is known to inspire younger generations, and to see the continuity, right, throughout the generations as well. So that's definitely something that's on my mind, is to make sure that people know those stories.
And then so you left Youngstown and got to Ann Arbor, which is pretty much a lily white town. How did that do for you? I know, I mean, Ann Arbor is 40 minutes outside of Detroit where I'm at. So
right,
and college town.
You know, it's so interesting, Anthony, because growing up in Youngstown, I went to predominantly Black schools. And so being around Black culture and Black history was a part of my everyday. In my elementary school, we had Blackhistorymonth contests, right? Where you were learning about the inventors and the, you know, the key folks and the civil rights activists. You knew all of that. When we had story time, we were learning about Anansi the Spider and Reed and Virginia Hamilton, you know, the people
Okay,
could
I love
fly
it.
about, you
I
know, our
love it.
ancestors.
I love it.
And so I had all that kind of rich sense of self and this sort of comfort with Blackness. And then all of a sudden you flip around and you go to a predominantly white school where you're one of only a couple Black kids in the class.
Yes.
It was an experience. It was culture shock, but I'm so happy that I had that foundation of strong Blackness.
Yes.
Because it helped me to get through. I didn't have problems where I hated myself or didn't understand myself or was uncomfortable with my Blackness, because that had been so ingrained in me in those early years. This is who you are. This is your history, your culture, embrace it. And so when I came up against people who didn't understand me or people who wanted to dismiss me or devalue me, I knew that that was them, that that wasn't me, because I came from strength.
So now, one of the things that happens is, and I noticed this, that people who, you know, raise their kids in the suburbs and stuff like that, and when I mean suburb white areas, what have you, the kids are, they talk a little more proper. They don't know that street vibe.
Yeah.
You know the street vibe, and then had to go to Ann Arbor. Did you had to loosen up the street vibe so that you could fit in?
Not really. And here's the thing. I'm not a fit-in kind of person. I just do me, and either you with it or you not.
I love it.
I don't have time to change or to, all I can do is just be me, because I've spent a number of decades with me and I'm comfortable with who I am. And so, you know, I never really thought too much about what other people were concerned about. And I was more concerned with being the best that I could be.
Yeah, you know, because I mean, there's a story even now on the news about a young girl who goes to a neighborhood and she's got her hair braided, you know, in cornrows or whatever, and they was, you know, the school district was saying, hey, you can't do that. We don't accept it. That looks funny or whatever they did, and it was a little strife. Did you have any of that type thing? You coming in one day with your dashiki and everybody said, hey, hold on, no, this ain't the right place.
No, I never really had too much of that in terms of like how I dressed or how I talked. The places where I did experience that sometimes is that whenever we were given a project in school, I was always that girl that wanted to do something about Black people. So I was always picking, you know, a country in Africa to write about for my geography class, or I was always picking, you know, a Black hero or heroine from culture to focus on. You know, when it came time in school to write my kind of like big history project, I wanted to write about Motown and Black Sound, and everybody was like, what?
Right.
So I kind of got a little bit more pushback and kind of stares and questions about why is she always writing about Black folks and focusing on Black folks. But that's just what fueled me. Like that's
I love
what
it.
I loved about education, is learning more about my people.
So did you study Black history to do it? Because what do you do today? What you do what? What's your job and that kind of thing?
Yes. So my job today is I am executive director of the Black Metropolis Research Consortium in Chicago. And what that is a consortium of libraries, museums, universities, historical societies, arts organizations. And what ties them all together is that they all have archives and collections related to Black history and culture. And so my job is to promote that, to make sure people know about the Black history and culture, that people are using that information, planning events to support it. And so I love that I get to do that, which is to basically promote people to discover and use these stories, to produce scholarships and documentaries like you've done. So it's just a wonderful thing. And before this, I taught history. And I focused a lot on teaching Black history.
So your education is in history, your background?
Yep, I have a PhD in history from the University of Chicago.
Yes.
Yeah, and my dissertation was on a Black woman named Reverend Addie Wyatt, who was a civil rights activist, women's rights, labor organizer. I just always used my interest in Black history and culture to write about it, to talk about it, and to promote it.
So now, when people get a PhD in history, that's a lot of history that you know every day. Do you get and then I think the thing of it is a lot, and I see this in news and what have you, when we talk about Black history, a lot of it has a negative connotation. I don't know how else to put it. I mean, you watch it in the movies. There's a movie show on TV coming out about a Black kid, and I think might have some good notes to it, but at the end of it, it's got to be some fight, some struggle. How does that work with your psychic every day to have got a doctorate in all the pearls that we went through?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And it's funny because some people don't actually want to study or talk about Black history and culture because of that, right? Yes. There's a huge fear around that. No, I don't want to know about that stuff. I don't want to know about slavery or civil rights and people getting killed. I don't want to talk about any of that. And my feeling is that we are human beings, right? We were put here, and the color of our skin has meant that we have undergone certain trials and tribulations that not all others have gone through.
I love it.
And so while that has produced some heartbreak and some struggle and some generational issues, it also means we are survivors. We are strong, right? Yes. We have overcome things. We are resilient.
Yes.
And so while I understand people seeing the negative, I also see the positive that
there you go.
That we still keep striving. We still keep existing and living and moving forward.
Yes.
And that contains some strength, right? That I kind of think of it almost as kind of like my cloak, right? Like if I were to be a superhero, like my knowledge of Black history and culture is what allows me to go out in this world every day and be okay. Yes. Because I know that, yes, I have come from struggle, but I've also come from strength.
Yeah.
And you need that, especially in this world.
Now the lady you chose to do your dissertation on, is she, what's her background? I never heard of her.
Yeah, so her name is Reverend Addie Wyatt. She was born in Mississippi, and her family migrated to Chicago. And she sort of grew up there, became really involved in the labor movement in Chicago and meatpacking plants. From there, was very involved in the struggle for civil rights in Chicago as well as in the South. Did a lot of labor organizing, and at one point in time was the highest ranked Black woman in the labor movement in the 1970s and 1980s.
Labor movement nationally?
Yes, nationally and internationally, working with folks like Bill Lucy, Charles Hayes, who eventually became a congressman. She was active in women's rights and also active really helping younger Black folks in the labor movement to kind of get their foot and understand how to struggle for dignity and better wages and all of those things. So she really is a kind of that TV show Unsung that focuses on folks in music in Hollywood. Well, Addie Wyatt is unsung when it comes to thinking about human rights.
Now, so let's ask this: when you say the labor movement, I understand that, but is there an association to say you the highest ranking, or she holds a title somewhere? She had a job somewhere that she was really esteemed in that, and then did a lot of things. What does that mean?
Yeah, so she started in the United Packing House Workers in the 1940s, and then that kind of, unions sort of merged, and so that merged into the Amalgamated Meat Cutters, and finally ended up with the United Food and Commercial Workers, which is a strong union today. And so that union had over 1 million members when she was a part of it, and she was an international vice president and their director of civil rights and women's rights. So if you were to sort of in the 1970s and 80s, look at all the top unions in the AFL-CIO, you were looking for Black women. She was the one sort of right up there and one of the highest ranks. Absolutely.
Did you meet her? Is she still alive? Or?
I was able to meet her before she passed away in 2012.
And you told her
Yeah.
I wrote my dissertation. Were you in school or had finished at that point?
I was in school. I let her know. I told her, I really want to write about your life. And she was saying, tell the story. I went to her where she was born in Brookhaven, Mississippi. I traveled there.
Oh, really?
Was looking in documents and found out information about her family. I traveled to Wisconsin, New York, Detroit. I went all over the country trying to find information about her and found a wealth of material in Chicago as well.
Okay. So now that's really what archives is, though. What does archives mean?
Mm-hmm. So it's basically records and documentation of a person's life, of an organization, of a movement. And it's what historians use to be able to tell stories, right? Like we might have an idea or a theory or a belief that this is how something happened, but we use those archives to help provide documentation. And so it's the physical archives that are in libraries, museums, and spaces across the country, but people also have their own family records and family history that, maybe is being kept in the basement or the attic, although we want to keep it somewhere where it's going to be safe. So away from floods, away from heat, all those kinds of things. But we also create our own archives and collections when we interview people and get their story, because maybe their story hasn't been documented on paper and in the archives. And I really believe that's what we have to do as Black people, is make sure we are collecting the stories and telling the stories, because sometimes we're the only ones.
Yeah, because I know when I did my my movie, The Business and the Black, one I talked about, someone has suggested that I donate what I did to do the research and whatnot to the museum. Mm-hmm. That would mean I'm donating stuff, and that would be archives.
Yeah, yep.
And so you encouraging people to do that throughout Chicago and wherever, to donate their stuff to archive organizations too.
If that is what they want to do, and we provide resources to help them, because sometimes what has happened is that archives will take our collections and that's the last we see of them. And our organization works to make sure that doesn't happen. That the things that people donate that help talk about and discuss Black history and culture, that those things see the light of day, that people have access to them, they can use them to create new histories. We really want to do that. And we also provide resources for people to know, if you're going to donate your things, here are the kinds of things you can ask for or request or understand. But we also provide resources for people in case they want to keep their collections. And we can help them say, okay, here's how to make sure you store it, so that if you have a flood in your house, you don't lose all your family history. Here's what you can do in order to scan it and make a digital copy. Here are the things you could do to pass it on to maybe younger folks in your family.
I got you.
So even if people don't want to donate, we want to make sure that they know how to care for their things and their history.
Let me ask you this, and you don't have to name names in this regard, but has there been some institution that you've run across that had some archives of Black history that did what they could to keep it quiet?
Yes. I won't name names.
You got name names. I know there's a name out there.
I won't name names. Yes. And there's several reasons for this. Sometimes people will keep information because they're afraid of what it contains, so they might be protecting legacies of others.
Right.
And so, there's that. There's also the problem that archives aren't funded in the ways that they need to be. And so often there might be one person or two people there trying to document and, preserve all of this history, and they don't have the capacity to do it because there's just one of them. And so sometimes, people donate and there's a long time before it's actually available to the public, because we don't necessarily provide the support that we need to for these folks who are doing this work.
Yeah. A couple more questions. Have you run across somebody that you heard had a bunch of archives, pictures, documents or something, and maybe you yourself or somebody had to go out and really talk them into to allowing people to see it? Because I maybe not Black or white, I guess, that you had to coax them into saying, come on, we really need this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing that work right now.
Really?
People who, there are some folks who I met before the pandemic who reached out and said, well, I'm getting up in age and I need to think about what to do with these things, but I'm just not really ready to let them go. Because, you think about it, if people have done all this work and been involved in all these organizations and these movements, and this is their career, it's hard to let those things go, right? It's like a piece of you.
Sure.
And so you have to build trust with people in order for them to feel like, okay, I can finally start thinking about letting these things go, because the last thing that we want to have happen, which happens too often, is that we'll get a call or somebody get a call and say, hey, such and such passed away, and they're throwing all their stuff from their home in the dumpster.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, you know, what do you do when all this important material is now being put in the trash because people don't understand its value? And so we have to, you know, keep having those conversations with people that, you know, we understand your need to hold on to your things, but we also want to make sure that other people have access to them. Because again, when they have access to those materials, they can tell the story, and the story can live on beyond you.
Yeah. Have you had somebody to say, okay, I got some stuff, but I want you to pay me for it?
Yes. Oh, Lord, I have had some of those conversations. I got to pull out my empty pockets.
Do people do that sometimes? Do they pay them for it? Is there a way to, you know, is that an option? Let's say.
If an institution or an organization has the funding, sometimes they will, but there's a disparity there, because a lot of the institutions in our communities that would want to have our things don't have that funding. Yeah, sure. And so sometimes you run into the issue where the institution that has that funding or has that support is not one in your community. And it's not one where people who look like you may feel comfortable accessing that material. So then there's a kind of question, right? Because on the one hand, we're telling people their things have value, but if we can't provide monetary support for that, then people are like, well, you know, what are we gonna do here? Yeah. So it's definitely a complicated, complicated
I got a couple more questions. They're coming at me, and I'm hitting them on you, right? She knocking it out the box, everybody. Can you tell? How about this one? Have you run across an archive or something that someone told you in the news or media or what have you that you found out was a lie? You know what I mean? That somebody said this guy did this, and somebody wrote, you know, in some company or whatever, and they said, no, that we got a document that refutes that. That's not how it went down.
I don't know if I've ever found something to be a lie. I think more often than not, I find that the contributions of Black people are not in the history books. And that the archives and collections of Black folks say, no, actually Black people were there, and they were doing this and that, and they were a part of this. And so it's less, you know, somebody being credited than it is more erasure, to where we didn't exist or we weren't pivotal in ways that we were.
Yeah, I got you. Because there's a lady on the channel who refutes that the first slave ship did not actually go to Jamestown. Yes. And she's on the channel. Somebody did the research, and I guess they had to get through the archives to get this research that said it actually landed at an island outside of Jamestown, and they let off 10, 15 slaves on this island. And I'm sorry, everybody, I don't know the actual, details. It's a video on the channel. And I've interviewed another lady who says, yeah, that is true. And Jamestown had to recorrect their historical markers and everything to take off the word first.
And that can certainly be the case, because you know what? Every day, historians and archaeologists and other folks are finding out so much more about what happened during the period of the transatlantic slave trade that our information is changing. We're even finding out new things about how, everybody says, oh, well, they stopped trading slaves in 1807. So, there were no more ships coming across the Atlantic.
Right.
Not true.
Not true.
Not true. There were. Right. And then even after that, there was a strong trade happening between South America, the Caribbean, and the United States.
That's right.
And an even stronger trade that was happening inside the United States.
That's right.
So every day we're finding out more and more and more. And so you hear these people are like, oh, that happened so long ago. Who cares? We don't care about slavery. We're still finding out new information today.
Yes. Okay, with that line, have you found something that you said, wow, I'm so happy I come up with that? Is there something that you can share with us that maybe we don't know of a moment in history? Anything that you know.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely things I have found in the archive that have been really important. One of the things I found that kind of relates to Addie Wyatt is that a lot of people would think about the kind of civil rights movement, Dr. King in the South, and Montgomery bus
Yes.
boycott, and they don't connect it to Chicago. Well,
Okay.
Addie Wyatt was actually organizing in the 1950s, 1954 and 1955 for funding for the Montgomery bus boycott in Chicago.
Oh, really?
And so it was people, she was going around to all these unions in Wisconsin and Illinois and other parts saying, won't you donate to what's going down in the South? And this is before a lot of people actually knew what was happening. Her union was the first to actually invite Dr. King and folks from the Montgomery bus boycott and the SCLC to come up to Chicago.
Oh,
And that happened 10 years before, you know, the open housing movement where Dr. King came and marched in Chicago. This was 10 years before that.
Okay.
Her union was inviting them up.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one, everybody. We go definitely make sure we note that. Let me, as we kind of come to a close, what are the archivist organizations in Chicago that you promote?
Yeah, so we have Black Metropolis Research Consortium. You can Google us and look us up and find us, and we're on social media and all that.
Right.
All of our member institutions, so Chicago Public Library. I really do want to highlight that the Chicago Public Library has the Vivian G. Harsh Research Collection, which is at the Carter G. Woodson Regional Library. That was a collection started in the 1930s and 1940s by a woman named Vivian G. Harsh. And she was inspired by the Schomburg collection in New York. She wanted to create something similar. So today, that collection has the largest amount of materials in the Midwest on Black history and culture. It's at 95th and Halsted in Chicago on the South Side. Yeah, would never have known. So I want to promote them.
Yes.
We have other organizations, the Sobel Museum of African American History.
Yes.
We have the Southside Community Arts Center. We have Shorefront Legacy, which is a wonderful organization started about 25 years ago that documents the history of Black people north of Chicago. And the city in which is a part of, Evanston, was one of the first to grant reparations to Black folks. And they used the materials that Shorefront had been gathering about the history of Black people to actually provide the documentation to say, yes, Black people were wronged, and we know it because we have the documents to show it.
Yes.
So there's a lot of things happening in Chicago, other places, Chicago History Museum, lots of the universities that we're a part of that exist.
Yes.
And there are, you know, all kinds of organizations that folks can visit across the country.
Yes, that's right.
My husband and I, every time we travel somewhere, we make it a priority to go to the Black History or Black Culture Museum in that city.
I love it.
Right, to support it, to buy materials,
yes.
To sign up for memberships if we can. We support
yes.
Black-owned businesses in those
yes.
areas. That's just a part of what we do to make sure our dollars are cycling into
That's right.
work.
I love it. I love it. Is there a, what's the website for your organization?
Yes, so our website is bmrc.lib.uchicago.edu.
Yeah, we're gonna put that in the description. Is there a one more thing? I guess this really kind of comes to mind. You know, Chicago being home of Johnson Publications,
yes,
and all those photos and things like that. What ended up happening to that? Is there still rumor mills, or have they been documented? What's the story on that?
So they were purchased by a group of entities, including the Getty, the Smithsonian, National Museum of African American History and Culture, and a couple of other foundations. And so right now what they're doing is the physical photographs are still in the Chicagoland area, and they are digitizing them. We don't know what's going to happen in terms of access to the physical archive or to the digital archive, but they've not disappeared. Yes. There are folks working on trying to get access to them. So it's a kind of ongoing story. There are a lot of people who hope that they still end up staying in Chicago because this was the home of Johnson Publishing.
Yes.
And there's so many other connections. to the group. So I guess stay tuned on what's going to be
we're still
happening.
waiting to see what will happen. What would be the best case? I mean, be in Chicago and maybe go to the DeSable or some museum where there would be an exhibition of all these photos. Would that be maybe the ideal scenario to start out with?
Yeah, I think the opportunities to exhibit the photos, opportunities for folks, if there are living photographers who did that work, for them to talk about what it was like to work for Johnson Publishing.
Yeah.
If there are their descendants who are there, and just ways for people to see, because they capture so much of the everyday of Black life. Yes, the celebrities and the key moments,
right,
but also people just walking down the street and people, you know, going to hang out at a club, like all of these aspects of just regular Black joy and Black life. Those are things that we need to see and to document. And again, for people to write about and talk about.
There's a guy, he's on my channel. He got a museum. Cecil Williams, I think is his name. If you haven't heard of him, Cecil Williams was a photographer jet, and he's got a lot of the photos, and he started a museum with this.
Wonderful.
Yeah, you know, we offline, and you know, Cecil Williams, he's on the channel there. Look for the video. And so, hey, everybody, you know, what does archives mean? What is that word? It just means document, doesn't it?
It's just basically a collection of materials that document a topic. Yep.
Okay, so that's right. What last question? What was the oldest document that you think you've seen? Piece of paper or otherwise?
The oldest document that I've actually seen is from the 1800s, and it was the records of a slave owner.
Wow.
Because I was trying to trace back the descendants of Addie Wyatt as far as I could.
Yeah.
And so I was able to look at, but you know, the problem is the further back that you go, they didn't name us very often. Right,
right.
So it would just be boy or woman and an approximate age.
Sure.
But you know, to see that, that's an experience.
Yes.
On the one hand, it is dehumanizing and devaluing.
Yes.
But you also think about who those individuals were.
Yeah.
And the fact that despite all of that, they chose to live.
Yes, there you go.
So that others could continue.
That's the high note.
And that's the high note, right? And so the work that we do to uncover this information and to follow the breadcrumbs, that's what we do in tribute to our ancestors.
There you go.
That's why I enjoy this work, because I feel like I am contributing to that legacy and making sure that it lives on.
Yes. Now, last question. You know, I keep saying that, but here it is. Have you written a book? Are you going to write a book? Did you take your dissertation and make a book out of it?
I did. I wrote a book on it's a biography, the first biography on Addie Wyatt, called Reverend Addie Wyatt, The Fight for Labor, Gender, and Civil Rights. It came out in 2016.
Yeah.
And I'm working on a couple of other books. One with my friend, Dr. Tracy Parker. We're working on a new reader that goes from the start of the Civil Rights Movement to the Black Lives Matter movement.
I love it.
We're hoping that will be coming out in a couple of years.
Oh, there you go. Watch out. I told you she bad. Didn't I tell you? Didn't I tell you that sister bad, man? Come on, man. I ain't lying to you people. I told you she's tight. She knocked it out the box. Thank you for coming on the channel. Strong inspirations where we give it to you like I told you we do. I'm so happy she came on here. I'll tell you, man, look, listen to this. This good stuff here. This good stuff. Go to Chicago, check out that one that you talked about on 95th Street. What is that called?
95th and Halstead.
What is it? It's a building called the what?
It's the Vivian G. Hart's Research Collection at the Carter Woodson Library.
There you
95th and Halstead in Chicago.
I'm coming over. I got to come see that and take a picture in front of that. I got a picture in front of his home in DC that I tweet out every now and then, but I got to come check that out and so on and so forth. And so everybody, this is what we do at Strong Inspirations. I want you to subscribe to the channel. It's free. We don't ask no information. It just let me know you like me. And now, and maybe you don't like me, and that's why you're not subscribing. I ain't sure, but nonetheless, I know you like me because you're watching. So I ain't even feeling that one. That's not even, I don't worry about that. Hit the like button on this video because she knocked it out like I told you she would. I told you she would. Hit the notifications bell because I'm putting 4 or 5 videos up a week. I'm putting them up because when I do them, I put a little edit on them. I ain't gonna lie to you, just in case, but nothing significant. And then I release it. And I can't tell you when I'm gonna do it because I release them in the middle of the night sometime. I can't sleep. I get to thinking, so let me share some Black history right now. It might be somebody else who can watch this right now. And then they stay on the channel forever. Tell somebody about strong inspirations. Don't keep this to yourself, acting like you know everything. That's not right. Tell somebody, watch these videos with your kids and other people, some people who are not so conscious as you, and let them, and consciousness them. There's such a word. Make them conscious by watching this. And to you, my sister, I say this with all sincerity. I want you to stay strong, stay safe, stay on your grind. I love what you're doing. You smart, all A student, you. I know you was. You cut out of Youngstown, you had all A, you glass valedictorian and all that. Then you go to Ann Arbor and you knock them out there. You say, hey, oh, yeah, I'm here. I'm getting all these A's. Y'all got to recognize me and I'm going to get my doctorate. Boom, shakalaka. And she did. She followed through. I'm happy you're on the channel. Stay strong. Keep doing what you're doing. You found your mission. We love you for doing this and promoting that to them people. And the people who don't want to give it away, I know you smile at them enough and they eventually do. So with that, I'll say, hey, bye-bye, we out. Stay strong, people.
Thank you.
Yeah.